You guys know the world's going to end in nuclear war, right? Like, you don't need to worry about climate change or rogue AI or asteroids or whatnot. It's going to be nukes. Could be tomorrow, could be 40, 50 years from now, but it's going to be nukes. I've been studying the Cold War a lot recently, and on almost every metric, it was an infinitely more dangerous time. The US and the Soviet Union were real competitors. They were fighting proxy wars everywhere. It was a violent, nasty time. Millions of people died. But one thing that was different back then is people took nuclear war seriously because they had seen it. They had seen what it had done in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and they had seen the evils of World War II and some of them, the First World War before it. They knew how easy it was for people to kill each other and for things to escalate in ways that were unpredictable and horrific. And that awareness is just gone. I don't see that anywhere in the US policymaking community. It's just gone. It doesn't exist anymore. It's insane to me that we have backed Russia all the way out of Eastern Europe. If we get exactly what we want in Ukraine, we'll start talking about Chechnya again. We're currently pushing the Chinese. We're tap dancing all over China's red line in Taiwan. And if we get everything we want in Taiwan, then we'll start talking about independence for Xinjiang and Hong Kong. There is no sense of how close we could be to Armageddon. I'm not saying that the Chinese or the Russians are going to be the people who decide we've gone too far and we refuse to submit to the U.S. It could be any one of a number of other countries. And it could be threats we can't even imagine 10, 15 years from now. But yeah, like within the next couple decades, probably within the next 5, somebody is going to just make a mistake. Something's going to go wrong. Somebody's going to misjudge something, and they're going to throw the first bomb, and then we're going to throw the rest of the bombs, and that's going to be it. That's how the world ends. It's not a secret, and almost nobody's paying attention to this. That's how the world ends, in nuclear fire, unless we do something about it. So there's no better proof that nobody in Washington, D.C. cares about nuclear non-proliferation than the Iran nuclear deal. The JCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, put in place in 2015, and I believe went into action at the beginning of 2016, was the most unbalanced and unfair and extreme weapons limitation treaty in human history. It was incredibly unbalanced in favor of the United States. Iran had to give up all manner of things, had to submit to inspections, had to agree to things that nobody else in the world had to agree to. And in return, the United States had to do nothing. Really nothing other than lift some sanctions and allow Iran to do business with the world. It was kind of extraordinary what an incredible deal this was and how great it was for nuclear non-proliferation. At the time, many military figures in Israel, the people who are actually responsible for Israel's security, agreed that it was a great deal, that it did very good things in terms of limiting Iran's nuclear program. It was kind of miraculous. It was the biggest diplomatic achievement of the century, and it was thrown out. It was just destroyed for petty, petty politics. It wasn't just undermined by the Republicans, it was undermined by tons of Democrats as well. It was crushed. So in recent weeks, official Washington, D.C., official New York Times establishment opinion has come around to abandoning all the bullshit they were spouting about this deal and conceded, yes, it was an extraordinarily good deal. Trump was nightmarishly stupid for getting rid of it. We are now in a much worse position, and Iran's nuclear program seems much more likely to become an actual nuclear weapons program because of this idiotic policy of getting rid of the Iran nuclear deal that Trump embrace. But what's so incredibly infuriating is that even with this realization, even with every sensible person, even with, the Israelis in whose name we supposedly destroyed this, saying that the JCPOA would be a great thing to do, we're not going to get back into it. Because the Biden administration is so afraid that Ted Cruz is going to call them wimpy that we're not going to do just the really basic thing of getting back into this deal that was amazing for the world, for us, for nuclear non-proliferation. We're just not going to do it because nobody in Washington, D.C. is at all serious about limiting nukes. We had the same opportunity to essentially bribe the North Koreans into not having nukes back in the 90s, and the Bush administration destroyed it because we're not serious about stopping nukes. And it's just so goddamn sad. Tonight I recognized my first TikTok celebrity. Tonight I recognized my first TikTok celebrity. I can't stop thinking about the fact that we're treating the Iranians the way we treated the Native Americans. There's a lot of stuff in U.S. foreign policy that is greedy and stupid, but I think our Iran policy is the one that counts as like downright evil. We forced them into one of the most unequal arms control treaties in human history. Like, think of any other arms control treaty you know. Do you know of any other arms control treaty where only one side had to give up anything? Like START, INF treaties, it's insane. The United States got to keep its nukes. Israel got to keep its nukes. Only Iran had to do things. And then we broke that treaty. We broke that treaty, and now we're going to punish them for our breaking that treaty. This is how we treated the Native Americans. This is horrifying. You guys know cryptocurrency is like insane. It's literally like a deal with the devil. Like, I've bought a little cryptocurrency because of FOMO or whatever, but like, it's insane. Like, the promise of it is that it's going to take over everything. For any of this stuff to go up in value, the reasoning behind it going up in value is the idea that it's going to take over everything. And if cryptocurrency took over everything, it would be a living hell. Like, people don't like inflation. People don't like it. Oh, my dollar doesn't buy as much as it used to. How would you like living in a world where your money could be worthless, where you have no idea what you're being paid anywhere, where you would have to be a super special financial engineer degree person to know how to eat? That's the world that cryptocurrency is promising, fundamentally. Already trying this out in El Salvador, a country that's already been horribly victimized. We'll see how that goes. So I just saw Spider-Man No Way From Home, and I freaking loved it. I think this is probably my favorite Marvel movie since the Thor one, the Thor Ragnarok one, if not my favorite ever. Like, I really, really love this film. But what's interesting about it is I'm also a super cynical guy. And I am very conscious of the fact that a lot of the things that I loved so much about this movie were, and a lot of the plot points of this movie are like the result of machinations between corporate entities. Like the fact that Sony owns Spider-Man and Disney owns Marvel characters like Doctor Strange. And it's like, it bugs me a little bit. Like, I was literally crying in a theater because of decisions and plot points that have a lot to do with like corporate decisions. And this was bugging me a bit until I started thinking about Dante. This Dante, the Florentine, I believe, writer, the guy who sort of like set the Italian language in stone, like to the extent that like Western civilization, art, and culture has a starting point. You can do worse than this guy Dante and his Inferno, his epic cycle of poetry. A lot of you were forced to read this in college. I mean, there's elements of it that are still phenomenal stuff. It's great. It's good. It's, the cornerstone of our civilization or whatnot. And I was like, you know what? Like, it's great. It's phenomenal. It's a big part of, everything. But it was also like fan fiction for a continent-wide system of mind control. Like literally the Catholic Church would burn people who disagreed with it at the stake when Dante was writing this stuff. So, like, I'm just saying, like, art tends to be compromised. Like, that happens. So yes, I'm aware that in absolutely adoring this film, I am having sort of my chain jerked by, multinational corporations and basically doing free advertising for Sony and Disney. You know what? Nothing's perfect. I had an amazing time at the movies. I think you will too if you see this, and you shouldn't feel bad about it either.